Welcome to another episode of Chelsea's Live Line. I'm so excited to see y'all today. Today is November 16th. Being the month of November, right? It is National Scholarship Month. That's the first thing I must let you know. It's so important to realize that we can go to school for free. We can go to college for free. I did it myself, and the guest that I have today, her son did the same exact thing. It's possible, but it takes that diligent work. And that's why I want to get started with the word of the day coming from Proverbs 14:23, which says the following. All hard work brings a profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty. We could talk about wanting to go to school for free. We could talk about benefits that we want, but if we don't put the work in for those benefits, we will not receive them, to say the least. Therefore, I want to be able to share a great resource with you today in regards to how to actually go to college for free and where you can get the resources to do so. All right? That's where we're going to get into it. But I want to just introduce you to my guest first, Miss Gwen Thomas, a mentor of mine that I've known for some years now. We go way back, and I'm going to let you know how we met each other. Basically, I was volunteering through the NAACP at the time, where she was the president of a particular branch, had the opportunity to network with her, which led me to be an intern for her, for Gwen Thomas PR, which then created a long-lasting relationship from that point on. And as a result, I have her here today to be able to share her story because she's known as a scholarship mom. She's able to help men and women, boys and girls, be able to receive scholarships that allow them to be able to go smooth sailing throughout their college careers. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you my guest for today, Miss Gwen Thomas. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here with you today.
Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate that. Yes. So how did you get the name of the scholarship mom?
Well, I guess we were shopping for a brand,
Mm-hmm.
and I think because I had helped so many kids, I mean, my work was really done. My son had already graduated from grad school, and I still was helping, other students, and some of them just came and gave me a term of endearment of mom, and
Mm-hmm.
so we coined it the scholarship mom.
Awesome, awesome. I love that name, and I think it's so accurate, right? And as it relates to scholarships, you have a book out, which we'll definitely be getting into soon, everybody, to let you know how you can purchase this book. But before we get started with that, I would love to know, is there a lot of scholarship money out here today, right? Because I know that a lot of programs have closed, have ended due to lack of finances. Therefore, is there any hope for students who are trying to go to college?
There's more scholarship money than it's ever been before. Let me tell you, the Black Lives Matter movement, it raised the level of consciousness about the inclusion of African Americans. And that means that the opportunity for them to excel and for them to have opportunities that our counterparts may not have. So there are scholarships, not just for students that meet economic criteria, but there's all kinds of scholarships.
Oh, great. I'm glad to hear that because it leaves us with some type of hope, knowing that we are in this debt and people are like, how am I going to be able to finance education when we're in this debt? But it's good to know there is money out here. That's a good start. And when do you think that students should really get started with preparing for scholarships? Most people wait till their junior year of high school, but is there a specific time where we should prepare for that?
Well, I'm going to tell you, most people wait for their senior year in high school. But I tell families that there are scholarships that start as early as middle school, because what happens is these companies are already looking to see who is going to be coming to their universities. And so they're looking at fifth graders already. You've seen the television show, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader?
Yes.
Well, standardized test will determine whether or not, that student is going to fare well in college. And so I tell families just around the time the student is about 13 or 14, you need to start having a bold discussion with them about what that journey to college is going to look like. So if you have a student in their heart of hearts and they say they want to be a doctor, then it's important for the parent to get them in pre-medical programs for high school students. And they start as early as eighth and ninth grade. So it's important because that is a pathway to success in their career and also for scholarships.
Great, great. It's good to see that students are hopefully starting early because of the parent momentum. It's all about the parent leading the way for them.
Absolutely, because the parents, they've had some experience in the job place, even in the workplace, even if they, for example, have not gone to college, they still know that corporations are looking for the best talent, and they know that students need to do well in school to succeed. And so that's important. I mean, the parents, sometimes I'm the reinforcer, I should say, and sometimes they have a little difficulty and making sure students, stay on track. And that's why I wrote the book, The Parent Smart Guide to Sending Their Kids to College Without Going Broke, because the earlier you start, the better prepared you are.
Yes, definitely. And this is just a sneak peek, everyone, of the book, The Parent Smart Guide to Sending Your Kids to College Without Going Broke. That's so important. And Miss Thomas has an event that she's going to be talking about a little later, but it's on Black Friday, and that can cause some controversy for some folks who are too busy out here shopping instead of shopping for the right thing. Like, it's nothing wrong with shopping, but if you're out here shopping to go into more debt instead of shopping to get some assets, that's a personal problem. That's why we have to change the mindset of not only the students, but the parents, right? Yes, yes. What does preparation look like, right, for scholarships? What should we be doing? For me, I was involved in a lot of extracurriculars. I think it's important to be a well-rounded student, but I'd love to know what your thoughts are. How can students prepare today for these scholarships?
So, what happens when students begin to write the scholarship essay? They want to know the character and the conviction of that student. And so, I have a chapter in the book, How to Raise a Child with Character and Conviction. What makes them who they are? So, you've got to be able to tell the story. And so, as a student, before you become a senior, those years, the latter part of middle school, the beginning part of high school, you are beginning to create who you are as a brand, what you're interested in. You're now getting your feet wet. If I can say that, you're now
Mm-hmm.
kind of getting your feet wet in different areas. So, do you have a propensity to be a leader amongst your peers and other individuals? Have
Mm-hmm.
you taken a project where you took the lead and the project was successful? So you've got to be able to tell the story. You've got to begin to look early about what career pathways that you're going to take, because you can't write an essay and you don't know where you're going. You can't say, well, I haven't figured out what area that I want to study yet. That's going to go into a file that's not going to get any consideration. But if
Yes.
you say, well, I've had a passion for writing for the last few years, and I like telling stories. I think I'm a pretty good storyteller. And then you go off into telling them why they should give you the scholarship. So preparation really includes a little journaling, a little thinking about a place and time that's important. We just finished a pandemic. We just finished Black Lives Matter. So these are things that made everybody stop and think about the world and where they are in the world. We just finished an election. How did you feel about that? The are Black women propelling more elections and more people to run for office? I mean, there's all kinds of things, but you've got to be able to take a stand and develop ideas and positions on things to be able to, write scholarships.
Right, definitely. Like you said, that plan early on and being able to talk about those critical issues in the community, letting the scholarship boards know that you are actually on top of the current events. I think that makes a difference as well. And if anybody has any questions, make sure you put those in the chat. I do see some chats messages coming in here and there. But if a student struggles academically, right? Let's say they're a well-rounded student, but academically there are some hit or misses there. Are they still eligible for some scholarships? Because I know most are academic based.
Yeah, there's still a threshold. If you have a 2.5 and greater, there's still hope for you as a student getting scholarships. But you've got to be able to tell why you have a 2.5, only a 2.5. Well, you can easily solve that if you say, well, even though, I'm a high school student, I still have the responsibility of contributing to my family household, and I work 25, 30 hours a week. I mean, somebody who
That's
looks at
true.
that and say, oh my goodness, not only is this student, 16 years old, but they're taking the responsibility already of a young adult, and they're
Mm-hmm.
contributing to their household. So it adds value if you know how to write about the situation and how it has impacted your academics. So there are all kinds of scholarships for students, not just based on academics.
Oh, great, great. That's good to hear. And definitely, like you said, you have to be able to tell the answer why, because if you're helping a struggling family, that is a good example that could tell us why you're actually struggling academically. But if it's just because of lack of priority, then the board may look at you a little different in that case. Good point.
Yes.
Good point. What makes a student attractive to scholarship boards, right? Because I know that's extremely important, is to show that attractiveness, not just the GPA, because I've seen people with high GPAs that did not get certain scholarships that people with lower did because of their well-roundedness. So what do you think makes a student
Well,
attractive?
gone are the days that you're getting scholarships just on a GPA.
Mm,
I go back to the character of the individual. You've got to show some substance. What is it about you that makes you, different than the next student? Why should we give it to you? And so they want to see that, you're maturing. They want to see that maturity in your essay and how you're expressing yourself, your views. So they want to see a student that they're going to be proud to give a scholarship to, that they have bragging rights. They can come back and say, yeah, we gave this student, $10,000 for a scholarship, and look at where they are today. They're proud to go back and say, we helped this student and they were a success. So when it's all said and done, it's attractive based on what they can see that student has some vision in their pathway.
yes, that's a great point that you mentioned that, because for me, like any of the scholarships I had, I made sure to pay it forward after. I would go volunteering back at those organizations just to let them know I appreciate them for the scholarships they've given me. And most students, they don't know how to give back right after the fact. You have to thank them, and it's more than just a thank you card. It's about paying it forward. And that's what I love that you mentioned that. If they have that philanthropic vision early on, and if they're giving back to their communities early on, I think that's a green flag for students. Get involved. Go volunteering at any type of events, any type of causes that you're passionate for. Go and find out events that you can attend to get your volunteer hours up. Because myself, I already know Cameron had a lot of volunteer hours. I had over 1,000. So I know you have to accumulate those, and it help you build experiences, help you create some type of network that can last a lifetime too. Right?
Yeah, I don't know if the pandemic has affected a lot of students. I know that they have not volunteered as they would normally, but it's time for those students. It provides so much value because they're learning how to, interact in groups and, learn about expectations. And so that is so important because a lot of times students, they don't know because they've not had that experience. So, yeah.
That's so true. Yes, I see some of these comments, and some states offer the Bright Future Scholarship. Okay, there's plenty of them. Go ahead.
Yeah, Bright Futures, the Promise Scholarships are in certain states. Of course, they all have criteria. Some you have to live within the district. Some you have to have a certain GPA. So there's monies available in various cities. What happens is, some of those scholarships may not affect if a student wants to go to an HBCU. So some of those will not allow them to participate in the HBCU.
Oh.
But I tell students all the time, it's better to have more scholarships than not enough. A lot of times students don't realize the value that they have, and sometimes that can end up going in their pocket. And so, unfortunately, students don't understand the process of winning scholarships. I mean, my book, I talk about the process of winning. It does have 1,000 scholarships from undergrad to PhD, but that's not what I'm selling. I'm selling for you to understand the process of winning and how you win, not scholarships that you're writing just to get in, but scholarships on how to win. And so many people are hung up back on, oh, well, there's tons of scholarships out there. I can go and get one off this list. It's not about that. There's tons of lists. They circulate every day. There's tons of websites with scholarships on them. But you've got to know how to win, and they don't get feedback. Students don't get feedback on this.
You don't. It's a yes or no, and that's it. And like you said, how are you going to learn from that, right? Yeah. No, you really don't. That's important. But definitely, I think students can be attractive as it relates to the scholarship boards, just be out there. But I want to know from you, do you think there are more scholarships for undergrad or grad level? As someone who's already going through undergrad and saw there were a lot of opportunities for undergrad, I'm wondering, are those same opportunities available to me in higher education, the grad level?
Well, there are scholarships for graduate students, medical students, law students, PhD students. There are. Now, I can't tell you whether or not there's more or less, but I know that there's great value in those scholarships. We do know that a PhD is a hefty price. It can be six figures. And so there are scholarships for a PhD. And so, that's a 2 to 3 or 4, depending on how long it takes you process. So I think you raised the question the other day, about, I should say earlier, about fellowships and scholarships. So what happens between the fellowships, those are master's and PhD programs. And a lot of times the fellowship is a funded opportunity for students to become part of a research project. That means that the professor or the institution or the company, they're looking for young scholars to work alongside with them because they have something to prove. They have to support a dissertation, or they have to support some data that they're, have a larger picture that they need supporting evidence. And so most of the time, the fellowship is not going to be a huge amount. It may be 5,000, it might be 10,000, but it certainly helps you in the journey to college. And not only that, some fellowships are giving you the opportunity to add your name to the research data. And so that has value for you to be published if you're going to, go further and get your PhD. One of the things that you want to do is to try to have some of your works published, or you might decide when you get that PhD, you're going to work for an institution and they're going to require, that's a requirement as a professor, that you have published work.
Good to know. Good to know. I do have a question from the audience asking, does the guest know of any success stories deriving from FastWeb?
Not at all. Not at all. FastWeb is one of those ones you keep pushing and you keep pushing, and they get your data one after another and one after another, and you're in a web, a fast web.
Yes, I know. I've never had any success with that as well. That's a good question, because I'm like you said, it's just a luck of the draw when it comes to that. I don't think
That's why I did all the homework. That's why I did 1,000 scholarships from undergrad to PhD. It's divided up into discipline. It's divided up into months. It's like, okay, if I'm going into business, here's some scholarships. I could do it in November, December, January, that kind of thing. Here's some legitimate companies. But you get caught up in the webs, and they don't, many times it's them just copying a list from someplace else, and it's, oh my God.
Right, not legit as it should be.
Yeah.
Right, so scholarships don't really have any ties per se as much as fellowships do. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah, the fellowships are tied to, like I said, performance with a professor, or company. Let's say if you're going into pharmacology and you end up with a fellowship with Pfizer, for example, at the end of that fellowship, your contribution is supporting the professor or supporting the organization. So that's what that fellowship is about, and it leads to good jobs and things like that as well. Don't get me wrong. The scholarships, you don't, most of the time you get the scholarship, you get the money, you do what you have to do. The fellowship, you're more tied to work as it relates to, performance of creating data and that kind of thing.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. Another question I have for you is, do you believe in scholarship negotiation between schools? Let's say University of Chicago is giving $50K, but I have University of Kentucky giving $100K. Can I negotiate? University of Chicago, no, hey, University of Kentucky.
Well, I talk about that in my book. I've been negotiating scholarships. I started this process in 2007. And that is something we talk about. Yeah, I don't think I claim it as negotiation. I look at it as leverageability. And so what happens is, let's just say if it's University of Michigan versus Ohio State, and I tell families all the time, the least these major universities can do is give you $10,000. So they're not giving you $10,000. First of all, you need to walk away. That's the minimum they should be giving you. Because if you're talking about somewhere that you're going to spend $150,000 or $100,000, they can't give you 10%. Keep going, keep it moving.
Okay.
You've got to look at it almost like a job. You're getting ready to pay these people to give you a college degree. You're getting ready to pay them to give you a college degree. So you need to be able to, number one, have bragging rights about that institution. They need to be able to, number two, find you a job. And number three, be able to give you an offering that you'll be satisfied with. Because so many people go to college and they get degrees and they never work in that field.
Oh yeah, that's a fact.
So the school has sold them, a false hope. And so you want to make sure that these schools are producing results. If that student is getting a degree in political science, are they living their dream? What is the return on investment?
Right.
If day one they said, I want to be mayor, and 10 years later they're not mayor, or 4 years later they're not on the trajectory to being mayor, that school has a responsibility to say, okay, well, we're doing some things wrong, or we're doing some things right. So if your students are, on the track to be a medical doctor, and they're saying, well, I want to be a doctor day one, by God, after 4 years, they should be heading to take those exams, and hopefully, making those making the marks on those exams, and then on their way to medical school.
Definitely got to have a plan, like you said. Otherwise, the school really failed them, and also we failed ourselves if we don't make sure that the school doesn't meet our criteria, right?
Exactly, and so many schools are failing our students.
Exactly. And I do have another question from Latanya from Cure for the Soul Ministry. She said, we have single parents that watch our content. Some never went to college. Are there scholarship programs for single parents? That's interesting.
Well, yeah, there's scholarships for single parents. I mean, anybody can get a scholarship. If the point is, did they graduate from high school? The point is, did they go back to college? Are they trying to go back to college? There are programs now that are forgiving debt if you went to a certain college and you want to come back and finish your degree. They're saying, okay, we'll wipe out this debt. Just come on back. Okay.
Wow.
So
Okay.
there are programs available for people who are single. It doesn't matter if you're a single parent. The issue is the fact that you want to go to college. Are there scholarships for you? There's not going to be an application to say your admission is based on you being a single parent.
Okay. Good to know. So that's good that they do have the opportunity, because some people are just saying, like, maybe they have been out of the game for so long, they haven't gone to school for so long. Are there chances for them to get back and get the ball rolling again?
There are colleges who are forgiving the debt and allowing you to come back and finish where you left off.
Oh, that's good. Perfect. Okay, good to know. Right, that's like literally what I was about to ask you. Are there scholarships available for adults to return to school? But that's good to know that there are, because of the forgiving debt programs that they have.
Yes.
Another big part of applying for scholarships is the essay portion. Do you think that students should get their essays edited by a professional prior to submission? What do you think? Because I know sometimes I've seen where some people may submit essays and they are not grammatically correct. Will the scholarship boards be paying attention to that much detail? They care more about the story. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't know if it's fair to have it professionally edited for submission, but I think students need to, have a system in place where I call it the village, that you have a village in place, because it might be as simple as, Auntie Chelsea, I got a scholarship that I'm applying for at Michigan State. Can I read it aloud to you? And you turn around and say, you kind of lost me on the part about, you wanting, to do X, Y, Z. And so you need a second ear, you need a second eye to the writing. Does it make sense? The biggest thing is students who are not successful in winning scholarships, often they go off on a tangent and they are not specifically answering the question that has been posed. And so that's a major issue. They go and they talk about A, B, and C, and they're asking for, D, E, and F.
Right.
And so
In that case, no. But definitely, like you said, having that extra pair of ears, that's so important. That's a great
It's
verse
okay.
too.
Yeah.
Talking about the village, right? Because it definitely takes a village when it comes to applying for scholarships and getting that feedback from others. Yes, yes. Another question that I had for you tonight would be, well, let's get into actually your book more. Let's talk more about the book. Let's. You said this is your eighth edition, correct, of this book?
Yes, it is my eighth edition.
Nice, and I have my copy as well. Everybody, for those looking, this is
You
mine
have the
as well.
first edition.
Yes, first edition. Look at the progress, and I got mine signed. It's officially on. But definitely, tell us more about what we can expect in this particular edition.
So this
And
edition
yeah.
just came out a couple of months ago.
Oh, okay.
And so I had friends who have been following with me all along, and they said, "Hey, a couple years ago we updated it to include, master's scholarships, and then I added PhD. I've added special needs scholarships. I've added middle school scholarships for families who kids want to go to middle school into a private school because sometimes private school is a segue to better schools.
Yes, it
And
is.
so,
I can testify to that. I can
yeah,
testify.
and so I went back and included some of those things that happened after COVID that affected students. And I talk about those scholarships. I might have talked a little bit about loan forgiveness. I can't remember, but I know I talked about 529s. There's a lot of companies out here who say they're scholarship preparers or experts, and they're really selling 529 plans. And so
Mm.
so many people get locked up into thinking, that's a way to, pay for college. It's a savings plan. And that way that, you can save money. But at the same time, what I'm trying to do is cut debt. And
Mm-hmm.
so if students are astute enough and parents are astute enough to plan their work and work their plan. And
Mm.
so if you know that you have a student who've already said in their heart of hearts, Mom, I want to be a doctor. Well, we know being a doctor is $300,000 is how much you're going to pay. And so you need to get as much money on the front end as possible. Because if a parent is going to write a check, I certainly would prefer to have them write that check when that student gets that white coat.
Yes, there you go. There you go. That's facts right there. I love it. So yes, definitely you can purchase her book. I have the link in the chat. And my sis Mona said, this is an amazing topic. Thank you so much for being tuned in. This is so important because again, I'm telling you, it's possible to go to college for free. This book will give you the steps to do so. You have to make sure you have a plan with that though. Don't just read the book and be like, okay, what next? No, you have to make a plan for yourself. And the book is just the steps to telling you how to get there, but you got to have your plan, you got to have a timeline too, because it comes extremely fast. The time
Yeah,
it takes, it's like a whole process. You're going to have to spend external hours preparing those essays because in
right.
reality, it's about the fact that you actually have to prepare questions. You already know what questions they're going to ask you for the most part, like Miss Thomas mentioned, about critical things going on in the world. They're going to talk about, tell me about yourself. Tell me about a moment when you were able to solve a problem, a complex
Yes.
problem.
Yeah.
Things like that. Preparing yourself early on for those questions will help you save a lot of time in the scholarship process. And you may have some interviews as well.
Yeah.
Usually there are interviews for jobs, but there are interviews for scholarships as well.
Right.
So being
Exactly.
prepared and getting those soft skills, it's one thing if you're able to write, but it's another if you're able to actually talk in front of people and express your viewpoints in another setting. That's important too. And if y'all have any questions, make sure y'all put those in the chat. Next, we're going to get into the actual Black Friday boot camp, right? This is so important because, again, we are shopping for the wrong things. We shop for these scholarships. And one thing Mona said is, I used to assist youth in foster care with college planning, identifying resources, FAFSA, scholarships, etc. That is great to hear. That's great because we have to pay it forward. That's ever
So,
so important.
so I'm
But
so happy she mentioned that because
yes.
that's one of our next projects is to do more work with foster care. We've been approached by Spalding for Children, and so that's one of our initiatives in 2023 to do more work because they're out of the system and they don't by 18 and they don't have the support that many other students have. So we'll be doing more work with our foster care students.
Oh, great.
And so
No.
the work and the work we do at the Black Friday Scholarship Bootcamp, it's now in its ninth year. And so one of the things that a lot of people say, you have it on Black Friday, and that's a big shopping day. The It's intentional. because we look at it from the standpoint, while America is out shopping for Christmas gifts, we want our students shopping for scholarships. We want families.
That's me. That's me. That's my sounds on here. I'll give you the air horn because that's facts. We want our students to shop for scholarships and not for just everything that's out here, right? Go ahead.
Right. So we want them, number one, we want to keep families in the black and not in the red. We want them to think in terms of building wealth and not debt. And so, especially if you got a kid that's going to college in the next couple of years, you got to pull it back with that spending. Because there's a lot of people that are out here, they got a big $300,000 house, they got a $50,000 car, and then they can't pay tuition. You have to look at it in whole numbers. You got a kid that said, okay, well, I want to go to Howard University. You can't look at it as $50,000. I got to come up with Howard University. You got to look at it 50 times 4 is 200,000.
That's facts.
And so right. A lot of times we all know someone who went to college and came back with debt and no degree. We know everyone. We all know somebody. We've got to stop it because no one is talking about how families tap out of money. Families tap out of money. I get more calls, and I'll start getting them in January where that student is being sent home because the parent can't pay the bill. It's a hefty thing to pay when you got to send a check for $10,000 or $20,000. You can't always do that.
Exactly. Yep, and like Successful Melanated Dusty, he's saying here, private institutions, especially the Ivy League schools, can or will be the price of some mansions, okay? That's what y'all got to realize.
Well, one of the things that I will say, it's our form of reparations, is that some of the Ivy League schools, if you have the grades, and if your family is making under $125,000, you can go to college for free at the Ivy Leagues. But you got to do well in the grades. And some of the schools have been lenient with the ACT and SAT. That's getting ready to change. They're going to go back, standardized tests. But, I tell families all the time, they've got those students have to stay engaged in their studies.
Yes. So important.
At the end of we've all heard the parable. There's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. There's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and that's the scholarships.
Yes, talk about it. Exactly. And we don't see it as that pot of gold because we don't get to use that money directly in our hands. It's going into somebody else's hands. Therefore, we're like, I shouldn't work as hard for that per se. But we're in lines. And
so those who don't know my story, Cameron won $500,000 in scholarships. And so let me not get it twisted. A lot of people are confused and they hear, oh, this person won $1 million, $2 million. Those are offers. You can't use $1 million and $2 million. So that's not what we're talking about. That's fluff. That's fluff. Oh, they won $2 million. You can't use it. It's no way. Those were offers. You did a common app. You applied to 20 schools. They all gave you $20,000. I'm just using that for example.
Yes.
So that means that money is money that could have went to somebody else. Because you're not letting them know until May what college you've selected. So that could have went to somebody else. So I wish people would stop doing that.
Right. Like we have this and we're just using it.
In scholarships paid for his degree at Morehouse, his degree at Johns Hopkins, and he had an extra $100,000 in the package. And I'm not going to divulge all of that. And he was able to study abroad to 30 countries. So people were like, well, how did he do that when he was in college? He was abroad while he was in college. 10 countries here, 20 countries there. So he was at Morehouse, but he was never at Morehouse.
Hey, that's what's up. That's what's up. I love to hear it. It's good to hear your story because people can hear this now and be thinking of questions. Like, for example, Mona, who's in the chat, both of her sons, they want to be engineers one day. And as we know, engineering school can be expensive. Therefore, this is important for her to listen and take notes for her sons and for her daughter as well. And I also know there are parents that are in the chat right now that are hopefully taking some type of notes. And to ask y'all questions, y'all, Miss Thomas is here for a reason. But let's give more back into the actual Scholarship Bootcamp, because what ages is this for? The
It's
Scholarship
for high
Bootcamp.
school students.
High school
We
students.
encourage ninth grade to 12th grade. And let me tell you, I'm so excited. This year, we have a program that's debuting in Detroit. It's from Singapore. It's called Wit, Grit, Fit. And so what that's about is that students will participate in this game, and they will be able to put their strong they'll be able to put their likes and dislikes, and it'll be able to tell them what careers that they may be good at. And so a lot of times students are feeling, which way should I go into? I like law, but should I be a lawyer? Well, they need to know other jobs related to the law that they may do well in. They want to go into medicine, but that doesn't mean that they have to be a doctor. And so it will identify 21st century careers that they may not have known about.
Right.
And so at the end of the game, it'll give them a sense of where they're strong. So it's almost like if you ever heard of the Myers-Briggs exam,
yes,
it tells you the personality trait. This will tell you your career trait. And so then from there, of course, the NCAA has lifted the veil that students now that are college athletes can make money on their brand. So we will talk to students about what that looks like, particularly our students that are D2 students who are coming up short. They don't have a full scholarship in a D2 school, and how they can make up the difference by building their brand. And then we'll have my workshop on paying for college and how to go to college free of debt. And then we'll go into our afternoon sessions on FAFSA, ACT, SAT, parent workshops. There'll be a 21st century career workshop where they'll hear from professionals. We'll talk about their careers and what they like and what they dislike. A lot of times our students often don't see professional individuals. And so we want them to make sure that they can identify. It might be somebody there that, if they're getting ready to go through the track that professional has already been through. So it'll be an opportunity for them to talk to them. How do you get admitted to the school of your choice? What does that look like? And so students will have the opportunity to meet and talk to professionals. Our program is content. And so students will walk away with a better understanding of paying for college, how to get through college, what careers. The last thing we want students to do is go to college and never work in their field.
We don't want that, exactly, because like you said, many are not really sure what path they want to take as it relates to their careers, but trying to figure that out as early as possible will lead them to financial success and not just worrying about switching here and there and not being stable. We want children to be stable as it relates to their careers going in early on.
So students can win lots of prizes. It'll be a day of fun. We'll provide lunch and breakfast and lunch. And then the second day, it's optional. Students will be able to participate in a scholarship seminar as well.
Awesome.
So that's what the Black Friday Scholarship Bootcamp is about. We're proud to have our sponsors. Eastern Michigan has been with us every step of the way. We've got First Merchants Bank, which is our new financial partner, along with Michigan State Federal Credit Union, MGM Casino, and several other partners who've come aboard and believe in the work we're doing. The bottom line is that we're trying to change lives. We're trying to give students a heads up on what that journey to college is going to look like so they will be successful.
Yes, I love that. And what I'm about to do is put the link in the chat for the Eventbrite where people can register, because it's free, y'all. We are accepting donations, but it is free to attend this event. So just take that into account. All of this knowledge, right? Free return on investment when you think about it. So there's no reason for students not to be at this particular event. So I'm putting the link in the chat right now. Share that with a friend, family member, anybody who can be able to benefit from it. Because again, high school students, they need the prep early on. It's one thing to just focus on academics, but it's another to realize that there's something that comes after that, and that's the scholarship aspect of things. And there's so many different workshops, not just for students, but for parents I see as well. Real estate, y'all. Talking about real estate, different plans like insurance plans and 529, FAFSA, Biden loan forgiveness and how all of that affects not only the parents but the students as well. And this is going to be at the Mary Grove Conservancy, 8425 West 6 Mile Road in Detroit. There's no reason y'all should be out here shopping all day and all night, but y'all can't show up for an event that has a forever impact on your lives. And it's free. Come on now. That's what I'm saying. The priorities got to be in the right place.
Right. We work all year long, very hard to make sure that we work with our sponsors to be able to put on this program.
Yes, and definitely, like Mona's saying, DAPSEP is a huge program. I was a part of DAPSEP. That played a big role in my life. That's why I'm saying it's so important for our students to get involved with programs early on.
Right. Yeah. We worked with DAPSEP before. We've spoken to their parents. They had us work with their workshop. Their seniors, I think it was probably about 4 years ago, we came in to work with them.
Awesome. But yeah, so again, everybody, you can register. The link is in the chat, Eventbrite, for that particular event. Again, Ms. Thomas has a book. She's on the 8th edition of the Parent Smart Guide to Sending Your Kids to College Without Going Broke, right? Finances should be the number one aspect as you think about things when it relates to going to school. You can go to school for free. Many have done it. Well, some have done it. Let me not say many. Some have done it, and you can be another one that has done it. Or maybe your children, your cousins, your nieces, your nephews, whoever that may be, okay? So before we wrap up, just want to get your final thoughts on what can people start doing today to get focused? What can they start today? Like, for example, should they start researching scholarships? What's one tip you will leave them with today that can help them get on the right path towards success?
Develop a plan. So that means parents need to sit down and have a bold conversation with your student to say, okay, I know you're going to college next year. We've got, 8 months, and this is how much money I have. I've got $10,000. That's it. Then the student knows what they have. And so what a lot of parents make the mistake is they think that they're going to get more money. Life happens. So you need to be bold enough to have a conversation and say, this is how much. I know people in their heart of hearts, that's their baby. I want to help and I'm going to do whatever I can to put my kid through college. Well, whatever you can needs to be getting scholarships, because that means that if you only have $10,000, it's going to be a hardship. And because you also have to think about your retirement and your senior years. So, families can get scholarships. You just have to put in the work. And so, I actually do coaching with students. I mean, I'm hired to do personal coaching where I sit down and I work with students on their essays. I work with students on, which colleges to consider. When it's all said and done, sometimes we have parents who work overtime, I just came back from a seminar at St. John's Hospital, and I was listening to a parent. She says, I work 2 shifts. I've been doing that since the pandemic. And you have a teenager, you don't have time. I mean, you're doing we have to do what we have to do. Yeah. Bottom line. Mm-hmm. And so she says, I don't know. I've got a kid that's 14. I've got to do something. When do I start? Now. Yeah. You start now. Mm-hmm.
As soon as they get into high school, and like you said, even before, it's the preparation before, just knowing that, look, high school years go by so fast, therefore you have to have some type of plan in advance. And that's what we fail to do. But if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. You set yourself up for failure. But there's opportunities. Again, I have my own copy right here that I can even look at right now, even though there are some updates in the 8th edition. I put the link in the chat. You can get that on freshperspectiveseminars.org. Okay, everyone? But Ms. Thomas, it was a pleasure of being able to speak with you. It's been a long time since we got together.
It's always a pleasure to see you, Chelsea. I'm so proud of your work, and you're just an outstanding individual. And I just love talking with you every time I see you.
Thank you so much. We'll definitely be in touch. I want to bring you down to the bottom, and then I'll talk to you briefly right after and then let you go from that point. But again, I'll just bring you down. So thank you so much for being on, and I'll talk to you just a second. Having me. Thank you. All right, hopefully everyone, you've been able to learn at least one thing that you can be able to apply to help your child, your niece, your nephew, whoever it may be, get towards scholarships. If you're in Detroit and you know a senior or anybody, freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior in high school, then make sure that they're at this event. Thank you so much, Mona. I appreciate you, sis, for being here. And definitely, I'm looking forward to being able to just spread the knowledge that I know, because this month is National Scholarship Month. Just a little background. I went to school for free. Again, as I was stating before, it had scholarships externally, like not just one big full ride. It was scholarships that added up to full ride, thankfully. But it all took practice. It took a plan, and it took a village, like Ms. Thomas is saying. And I'm thankful to have her as my mentor, because she was able to help guide me as well through knowing how the process works, because she did it with her son son. It's not impossible, y'all. Just keep having the faith, because we know faith without works is dead. It's one thing to just be like, Lord, please give me these scholarships, but it's another to do that work. It's another to go to the Black Friday Scholarship Bootcamp. Nonetheless, God willing, I will see y'all next week for another live line. Oh, I can't even talk today, y'all. I will see y'all next week for another episode of Chelsea's Live Line. Until then, stay safe and stay blessed.